Hey, welcome back to this week's lesson in Second Chronicles. This week we are going to study Second Chronicles 15. Last week we studied Second Chronicles 14, and remember that was the revival prayer that Asa prayed, and it was my just imagine message. Just imagine if we were to all go out and pray every day the prayer of chapter 14, verse 11. What this world would turn around, how this world would turn around. It would just be amazing. So let's read 2 Chronicles 15, and then we'll discuss what I have written in my studies, and I would love for you to let me know what you have learned from 2 Chronicles 15. All right, so 2 Chronicles 15. It's called Asa's Reform, verse 1. The Spirit of God came on Azariah, son of Oded. He went out to meet Asa and said to him, "Listen to me, Asa and all Judah and Benjamin. The Lord is with you when you are with him. If you seek him, he will be found by you. But if you forsake him, he will forsake you. For a long time Israel was without the true God, without a priest to teach, and without the law. But in their distress they turned to the Lord, the God of Israel, and sought him, and he was found by them. In those days it was not safe to travel about, for all the inhabitants of the lands were in great turmoil." Sounds about right for these days and times, right, y'all? It's not really safe to travel a whole lot. Verse 6, one nation was being crushed by another, and one city by another, because God was troubling them with every kind of distress. But as for you, be strong and do not give up, for your work will be rewarded. When Asa heard these words and the prophecy of Azariah, son of Oded, the prophet, he took courage. He removed the detestable idols from the whole land of Judah and Benjamin, and from the towns he had captured in the hills of Ephraim. He repaired the altar of the Lord that was in front of the portico of the Lord's temple. Then he assembled all Judah and Benjamin and the people from Ephraim, Manasseh, and Simeon, who had settled among them, for large numbers had come over to him from Israel when they saw that the Lord his God was with him. They assembled at Jerusalem in the 3rd month of the 15th year of Asa's reign. At the time they sacrificed to the Lord 700 head of cattle and 7,000 sheep and goats from the plunder they had brought back. They entered into a covenant to seek the Lord, the God of their ancestors, with all their heart and soul. All who would not seek the Lord, the God of Israel, were to be put to death, whether small or great, man or woman. They took an oath to the Lord with loud acclamation, with shouting, and with trumpets and horns. All Judah rejoiced about the oath, because they had sworn it wholeheartedly. They sought God eagerly, and he was found by them. So the Lord gave them rest on every side. King Asa also deposed his grandmother Maacah from her position as queen mother, because she had made a repulsive image for the worship of Asherah. Asa cut it down, broke it up, and burned it in the Kidron Valley. Although he did not remove the high places from Israel, Asa's heart was fully committed to the Lord all his life. He brought into the temple of God the silver and gold and the articles that he and his father had dedicated. There was no more war until the 35th year of Asa's reign. No more war. Can you just imagine? Anyway, Last week we learned about the revival, right? We've already talked about that. What must we do to have revival in our hearts? We must destroy the obstacles in our lives that keep us from the Lord. We must build up and fortify ourselves, our family, and our community. And we must depend on God in all things. This week, we will continue with the revival theme. Right now, I'm loving Asa for bringing revival to Israel. Look at verse 2. This is the same warning the prophets have given every king. The Lord is with you when you are with him. If you seek him, he will be found by you. But if you forsake him, he will forsake you. Sounds familiar, like we have read that during every king's reign since Solomon, right? Well, it's still appropriate for today. If we seek him, we will find him. But if we try to do things on our own and say, oh, I don't need the Lord, well, he's going to get us for that. Just like a parent reprimanding a child, you best believe that God will reprimand us. There ain't no doubt about that, right? All right, y'all, let's read verses 3 through 6 again. It says, for a long time, Israel, change that word to America. For a long time, America was without the true God, without a priest to teach, and without law. But in their distress, they turned to the Lord, the God of Israel, and sought him, and he was found by them. In those days it was not safe to travel about, for all the inhabitants of the lands were in great turmoil. One nation was being crushed by another, one city by another, and because God was troubling them with every kind of distress. Wow. When you exchange that one word, Israel, for America, it fits with the times we're living in right now, doesn't it? But it doesn't have to be this way. It's not over. The true statement is, the trumpet hasn't blown from heaven yet. We all get discouraged and want to give up. But let me encourage you today to not be discouraged. Don't give up. And let me say, don't argue and fight amongst ourselves. This country is completely divided right now. You cannot convince me of that otherwise. But one thing is certain. If we argue and fight amongst ourselves, the non-Christians will see this and judge us for it. It won't be good for our revival if we're arguing with fellow Christians. I'm just saying. If somebody you know is spouting off on Facebook or some other social media about something you feel passionate about on the opposite side of the argument, let me clue you into this little feature called the unfollow button or the mute button. Those two features on Facebook are amazing. Or just keep scrolling. But let me say, the unfollow and the mute buttons work better because when you read posts that you disagree with, they get you angry and cause you to have feelings against that person. So, if you don't see those posts, you don't know about them. And you can live your life the way you want, and the other person can live their life the way they want, and you don't come across to non-Christians as people who like to cause trouble amongst themselves. In other words, everybody is happy, and the non-Christians still see us as united. Recent examples of this are politics and vaccines. That's all I'm going to say. People have strong opinions on both sides. Period. We're not going to go there today. That's it. But let me just ask you something. Do politics or vaccines matter in heaven? Nope, they sure don't. Look at verse 8. When Asa heard these things, he took them as a challenge from God, and he began leading his people to spiritual renovation. Let's have spiritual renovation in this YouTube group. Then spread it out to our communities. And then spread it to the world. Wouldn't that be awesome? Yes, it would. We can start right here with this video and last week's video, chapters 14 and 15. So in other words, God spoke and Asa followed. Isn't that what we're supposed to do anyway? God speaks to us and we're supposed to follow him. Now let's look at verse 18 through 16. 8 through 16, not 18 through 16. They restored the altar of the Lord. In current terms, they helped rebuild the church. Remember when Hurricane Sally came through last year? Our church needed new air conditioners because they got messed up during the hurricane. And it was going to cost us tens of thousands of dollars. Tithing and giving is our altar of sacrifice. We don't have to have a burnt offering anymore. We have to give our hard-earned money to keep our church, our local church, going. Because without the building, where would we gather? On the streets, maybe. I mean, yeah, that happens. There are churches that meet in tents. There are churches that meet on the streets. That can happen. But let me just say, we live in Florida. Right now, today, it snowed here in Florida, believe it or not. Yes, it did. But then during the summer, it can get over, over $100 degrees outside. So you're not going to get a whole lot of non-Christians coming out in the freezing cold and the burning up weather, because they would want to be comfortable to go seek the Lord. Anyway, to conclude, verses 17 through 19, he did not remove the high places in Israel. Remember, Israel's still split. So he really can't do anything in the parts of Israel that he doesn't control. But what he did control, he removed the other gods from that place. And his heart was fully committed. And he placed his offerings in the temple. And finally, there was no more war until the 35th year of Asa's rule. Because he was fully committed to the Lord. He had peace, y'all. Let's all get fully committed to the Lord today. I like peace, don't you? Peace is so much better than war. So let's all get fully committed to the Lord today. Y'all have a great week, and I'll see you next week. Bye.